Alright, today I'm going to be talking about some simple day, night and dusk interior lighting setups. All of these are done in one location and don't take too much crew or gear to achieve them, and you can do them pretty much any time of the day. So this first one here is sort of a dusk twilight interior kind of thing, and I actually shot this in the middle of the day. Before I made it look like this, it was a bright sunny interior. So what I used to make it look like this was a roll of full blue gel, a roll of ND9 gel. So for anyone growing up in the LED world, this is basically just a big roll of non-flammable blue gel. I just cut off the amount I needed to the window. So the ND is to bring the light level down and the blue is to change the color temperature. So I'm using ND9 over this window because it's not that bright out there. But if it was really bright, I'd double it over and have a ND 1.8. I also ended up putting a flag outside the window to block that light hitting it. It just didn't seem as realistic with it there. Then for this kitchen shot here, I just took this little LED light, taped it underneath the cabinet. And that's just out of frame glowing this little area here. Then in the background in this room, I took a old falconized light that I had and bounced it up into the ceiling to add some more room tone so it wasn't so dark back there. Also, I'm shooting this on the Komodo with the DZO Vespid primes and then also using the Takina 11-20 for the wide shots. So on this reverse shot, I just took that same gel from the other window, went outside, put it on the window, and the light inside under the cabinet is still the same. But when I was setting it up, I realized in the tiles you can see the reflection of the light. I just took a bit of gaffer tape, taped it to the side, and that hid the light. Kind of controlled it towards me a little bit more as well. I also felt this light in the foreground was a little too bright, so I just took some gel from the roll and put it over the globe to bring it down a bit. So for this next mid shot, I just took that same falconized light that was bouncing into the ceiling and repurposed it as a key light for me. I felt it wasn't soft enough, so I just took some diffusion from this Chimera light, which is probably more expensive than the whole light. And that just softened it up a bit, made it feel a little bit more realistic. So some of you may be wondering, why not just shoot it as is? Why not change the color temperature of the camera to more blue, or in post just to add more blue? But I'll tell you why. If the sun's beaming down outside and hitting trees and cars and poles, it's going to create some really hot spots. So inside, to compensate for those hot spots, you'll have to ND the camera way down so it's not overexposing, because that wouldn't look like dusk. Then that light inside lighting the person would have to be much brighter than what it already is, but then you still got to make it soft so it looks like it's ambient light coming in. Then when you have a real world object like a laptop that can only go so bright, if you've ND'd the camera way down, that light's not going to be bright enough to illuminate the person's face, and it won't look like a laptop would look like if it was dusk. So gelling the window down is just a bit easier. Also, this boom arm has got to be one of my favorite bits of gear. A while back before I started using it, I was mainly using book lights and lights through frames with cutters to block the spill, but that would always take up way too much time and space. And then I remember seeing this commercial that Chase Irvin shot, seeing that and thinking, that's the lighting setup that I want, but in daylight. A softbox with a skirt around it, you could put it on the boom arm and move it around the room. It was pretty common with the tungsten globe, but I wanted to use it with LED daylight. And it was kind of just before every company started making Bowens mounts, lights and softboxes for filmmakers. I remember trying to find the right parts to connect my 120D to make it work. It was a bit of trial and error, but since then, the amount of time I've used that boom arm to rig all kinds of stuff on it, or that lighting setup, is huge. I also use it with my Komodo now. I can just put it on the end of it and monitor it on my phone. So this one's a Kupo Junior Boom, but there's all kinds of companies that make them, Avenger, Manfrotto, etc. So yeah, it's just a great bit of gear that I always use. Alright, back to the lighting setups. It can be difficult to make hard light flattering on people's faces sometimes. And a lot of the times in movies and TV shows, when you want to use hard light, you'll see a way around it is to have the hard light hitting a part of the body but not the face, and then you have a softer source from the same direction as that hard light lighting the face. You could have that soft light inside or outside of that location depending on how big that lighting setup is or how much time you've got. It just adds some more realism having that hard light, a point of interest. So what I did for this one was take this 600D, but you could use a lower intensity light. I think I only had it at about 60%. And then it went through the spotlight. The great thing about Source 4 lights or these spotlights is they're an ellipsoidal light, so it has the feeling of sunlight because the beam's so sharp. I think what's also great about having the light just hitting a part of the body is that it feels way more natural. You don't always stand in the most perfect light all the time. Then inside, I just used that same falconized lighting setup. This is with no light, just the ambient overcast sky. Then this is with just the hard light, which works pretty well just like that. But it's because it's hitting these shears and that's glowing out a little bit more and acting like a bit of a diffusion. And then it's also bouncing off the table and lighting me. So you could use it like this, I think. And this is with the same panel light on. I did this on a 16mm music video recently too. We were shooting in lots of rooms with windows, so I had that same hard light going through and hitting the wall or parts of the body. It's actually hitting him directly in the face with the hard light in this one. I think it works okay, and film's a little more forgiving with hard light, but in the background you can see the dappled light on his body and the softer light coming from the same direction. This is some of the lights we had outside the windows. 2 600Ds on each window going through a spotlight, then an M18 and a sky panel. All right, this next one is me having another tea. What else do you do when you're standing in for your own shoots? So this is the Robert Richardson special. You see this in so many of his movies. A light above, lighting a table, then bouncing back up to light the character. But it doesn't have to be just on the table. It's just that approach of having an object close to the character and bouncing a hard light off that to light them. There's also a lot of other people that do this too, not just him. I don't often do this setup, but every time I do, I'm surprised how good it looks for how simple it is. It's just a top hard light aimed straight down on the table and it bounces back up and lights the person. And the light color and quality can change depending on what you're bouncing it off. This is with no light and this is on. I did it on this commercial as well here too. We used a tungsten 300 watt, I think it was, and you can see that same boom arm that it's on. And it works great, bouncing off that white bowl, mixed in with the wood and the shadow fall off that it's creating on the family. We also had a little light mat above this guy's arms in the foreground. I do remember on this rigging a tube light above the family first, and I looked at the monitor with the director and we both looked at it and we were like, yeah, it's okay. Let's try something else. And put this up, and it immediately added so much more mood to the image. But the only thing you can't do with this is add smoke because you can see the beam of light coming down. Okay, this last one is pretty rogue. I've never done this one before, but I've heard about it once or twice. This is if you're in a location and you can't rig anything to the ceiling or you can't tape anything to the ceiling, or maybe you don't have a boom arm. What you're gonna need is some helium, I'm sure you have that lying around, and some black garbage bags. You're just gonna fill up the black garbage bags with helium, let them float up to the ceiling, and try and create a sort of box so they act like cutters. I ran out of helium, so it's a bit pathetic how small it is. But yeah, I think you get the idea. Then I bounced the spotlight into it. If you've never used a top light with cutters on the side, it basically just controls that soft light straight down so it doesn't spill everywhere. This was some sky panels going through diffusion, but you can also bounce a light into it and it has the same effect. So this is with the garbage bags on, and this is with them off. I mean, it works okay. I'm not rushing out to use it anytime soon, but you never know. There could be that one shoot where no one has any ideas, and then you can step up and say, we need some helium and some black garbage bags. Then they all ask you to leave quietly, and you never get hired by them again. I mean, I don't know, you decide if it works or not. All right, cool.